Let's get right into it. Number 15. Pouring a glass of water. Picture this. You're an astronaut. You've just completed a 6-hour spacewalk. Your entire body feels like it was run through a dishwasher. And all you want, the one humble desire of your entire being, is a cold glass of water. So you grab a cup, you grab a bottle, you tilt the bottle, and then absolutely nothing happens because water doesn't pour in space, and the universe has decided that you don't deserve refreshment today. Here's the thing about liquids that we take completely for granted down here on Earth. They behave themselves because of gravity. Gravity pulls liquid downward into the container. Gravity gives water direction, purpose, and a reason to exist inside your cup rather than floating aggressively into your face. Remove gravity and water transforms into a floating, wobbling, semi-sentient blob that drifts wherever it wants, which is usually towards something electrical that it definitely shouldn't touch. The physics here is actually beautiful in a deeply inconvenient way. Without a gravitational force pulling the water down, surface tension takes over. Surface tension is that molecular clinginess, where water molecules stick to each other more than they want to stick to air. The result? A perfect, shimmering sphere of liquid just hovering there like a tiny planet, completely unbothered by your thirst. Astronauts on the ISS drink through pouches with straws and sealed valves, like incredibly educated toddlers. Any water that escapes becomes a floating hazard that needs to be hunted down and absorbed with a cloth before it drifts into an air vent. So the next time you fill up a glass of water without incident, take a moment. Look at that. Look at how your water is just sitting there, obedient and contained, not trying to colonize the ceiling. You're living in luxury and you don't even know it. Number 14. Crying. Crying is already one of the more awkward things the human body does. You're going about your day, everything seems fine, and then your face just decides it's time to leak. But crying on Earth at least has the basic decency to fall downward. Tears roll down your cheeks. They hit the floor. The situation resolves itself through the miracle of gravity doing the bare minimum. In space, your tears don't fall. They build. A tiny bead of saline just clings to your eyeball, expanding slowly into a wobbling dome of sadness that refuses to leave. The tear doesn't go anywhere. It just grows there, attached to your face, quivering. Eventually it gets big enough that it breaks off and floats in front of you. A perfect, glistening monument to whatever has upset you, before drifting off to go bother someone else on the space station. Astronauts have confirmed this. It's not theoretical emotional horror. It's documented. Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield once described the experience as his eyes just pooling up, the tears collecting in a bubble over his corneas, irritating his eyes, and making a rough moment significantly rougher because now he can't even cry properly. The psychology of crying is tied to catharsis. We cry, the chemicals release, the tears fall, and there's something physiologically relieving about the whole physical process completing itself. In zero gravity, the process doesn't complete. The tear just stays, attached to you, vibrating slightly. It's like your sadness is a loading screen that never finishes. Basically, space doesn't just make crying awkward, it makes grief itself malfunction. Number 13. Burping. Burping is not glamorous. Nobody is pretending otherwise. But down here on Earth, when your stomach fills with gas and needs to release it, the process is relatively straightforward. The gas rises because gas is lighter than liquid, and it exits. Brief, efficient, sometimes loud. You move on with your life. Your stomach in zero gravity does not sort its contents. On Earth, gravity keeps liquids at the bottom of your stomach and lets gas float to the top near the esophagus, which is why burps are mostly air and not a horrifying mixed spray. Without gravity, that separation doesn't happen. The gas and liquid inside your stomach are just floating together in a blended, sloshing situation with no particular organizational structure. So when pressure builds and something needs to escape, your body can't cleanly select just the gas. What comes out is what NASA engineers and astronauts delicately refer to as a wet burp. The clinical term is wet eructation. The unofficial term is something that would get this video demonetized. Essentially, every burp in zero gravity has a high probability of bringing friends. This is why carbonated drinks are heavily discouraged on the ISS. Not because astronauts don't deserve a Coke, but because the structural consequences of a fizzy drink in microgravity are genuinely unpleasant for everyone in a sealed metal tube hurtling through the void. Your digestive system was built around the assumption that down is down. The whole gastrointestinal process runs top to bottom. Gravity is not a bonus feature. It is load-bearing infrastructure. Without it, your stomach becomes less of a processing organ and more of a chaotic, pressurized bag of mixed content just doing its best. Which honestly is relatable, but you still don't want to be in the room for it. Number 12. Using a candle. Somewhere, at some point, a very optimistic person wondered, what if we lit a candle in space? What would the flame look like? Would it be beautiful? Would it flicker softly in the cosmic darkness like a tiny symbol of human warmth against the infinite void? The answer is, it would be a small blue sphere and then it would die. Which is its own kind of poetry, but probably not what they were hoping for. A candle flame on Earth is the shape it is, that teardrop tapering upward because of convection. Hot air from the flame is lighter than the surrounding cool air, so gravity pulls the cool air down and under the flame, which pushes the hot air upward, which stretches the flame into that familiar pointy shape and constantly feeds it fresh oxygen. The whole process is a gravity-powered air circulation system. The flame is, essentially, a very tiny weather system that requires a planet to function. In zero gravity, there is no convection. Hot air doesn't rise because there is no rise. The warm combustion gases just drift outward in every direction equally, forming a sphere. The flame burns cooler and dimmer. It consumes the oxygen immediately around it, and without convection bringing in fresh air, it suffocates itself almost immediately. A candle flame in microgravity lasts only seconds before it quietly extinguishes. NASA has actually studied this. There's a whole field of microgravity combustion research, because understanding how fires behave in space is extremely important for preventing the kind of in-flight fires that nobody wants to experience 300 miles above the Earth with no exits. So the candle experiment has genuine scientific merit. It just also happens to be kind of a tragic little metaphor. The flame that refused to be dramatic. The fire that couldn't even flicker. A romance subplot in a movie where the atmosphere literally doesn't cooperate. Number 11. Sleeping. Sleep is the one activity humans have collectively decided should be effortless. You lie down, gravity pins you to a mattress, your body relaxes into the surface beneath you, and eventually your brain takes its nightly vacation. The mattress is doing the work. The pillow is doing the work. Gravity is doing the work. You are simply a participant in a process that has been optimized over millions of years of horizontal evolution. In space, there is no lying down. There is only floating. And floating, it turns out, is a deeply unsettling way to spend 8 hours with your eyes closed. Without a surface pressing back against your body, your nervous system never gets the physical feedback that signals you are safe. You are still. You are somewhere. You're just drifting in a warm, dark room with your arms slowly rising in front of you because your muscles have nothing to push against and are defaulting to a neutral position that makes you look like a zombie having a very calm moment. Astronauts sleep in sleeping bags that are strapped to the wall. The wall. They Velcro themselves to a surface so their brain stops panicking about the fact that they're not touching anything. Without that contact, many astronauts report their brains remaining in a low-grade alert state all night, never fully shutting down because some ancient survival circuit is firing and going, "You are not on the ground. This is not normal. I'm keeping one eye open." There's also the issue of your arms. In zero gravity, without muscle tension holding them down, your arms drift forward while you sleep into what astronauts call the scarecrow position. You're Velcroed to a wall, in a sleeping bag, with your arms floating in front of you. You are technically resting. You look like you are haunting the space station. The human body spent millennia perfecting sleep, and it turns out the entire system requires a planet to function. Without gravity, your bed is a wall, your pillow is optional, and your arms are just going rogue while you dream about being somewhere with a floor. Number 10. Washing your hair. On Earth, washing your hair is not something you think about philosophically. You stand under water, the water falls on your head because that is what water does. You apply shampoo, you rinse, you leave. Gravity moves the water through your hair and down the drain. The drain exists because gravity exists. The entire shower is a gravity machine disguised as a bathroom fixture. In space, astronauts can't use showers. Not because the ISS doesn't have water, it does, but because the water immediately forms floating blobs that drift into equipment, walls, other astronauts' faces, and air vents. A shower in zero gravity would essentially be a water balloon fight that you started against yourself and cannot win. So instead, astronauts use a no-rinse shampoo developed by NASA and apply it directly to their hair. Then they work it in manually, and then, this is the part that takes commitment, they just towel it off. The shampoo is formulated to not need rinsing, which is a sentence that shouldn't work but does, because chemistry can be told to do almost anything if you fund it enough. The water they do use for basic washing has to be applied carefully from pouches, dabbed on, and then collected again before it escapes. Astronaut Karen Nyberg once posted a video of herself washing her hair in space that racked up millions of views, and the reason it went viral is because the entire process looks like something a person would do if they were trying to wash their hair while also being extremely suspicious that someone was about to steal it. She's squeezing water carefully, patting it down, working shampoo in while loose water droplets float around her head like a slow-motion halo of inconvenience. It's methodical, it's careful, and it takes about 5 times longer than it should. Your morning shower is not just a luxury. It is a monument to planetary engineering. Number 9. Digesting food. Your digestive system is a long, winding, muscular tube that moves food through your body using a process called peristalsis, rhythmic contractions that squeeze food along like a very slow, biological conveyor belt. Here's the part your biology teacher may have glossed over. Gravity assists this process at almost every stage. Swallowing is easier because food falls. Your stomach empties faster because gravity pulls the contents toward the exit. Even the movement of material through your intestines is partially aided by the simple fact that down exists. Remove gravity and peristalsis still works, your muscles are still contracting, the process doesn't stop, but it slows down. Food moves through the digestive system more sluggishly. Astronauts on long-duration missions frequently report bloating, gas buildup, and general digestive sluggishness that they politely describe as gastrointestinal discomfort, and that the rest of us would describe using words that are considerably less professional. There's also the issue of eating in the first place. Food on the ISS comes in sealed pouches or is eaten very carefully to prevent crumbs from escaping, because a stray crumb floating into a ventilation system is not just annoying. It's a contamination and equipment hazard. Astronauts eat with utensils coated in a slight stickiness to keep food from launching off the fork. Condiments come in gel form. Salt and pepper are liquid suspensions in small bottles. Every single accommodation in how astronauts eat exists because the basic assumption underlying all food, that it will go down, is no longer guaranteed. Your gut evolved inside a gravitational field. The whole architecture of digestion is built on the understanding that there is a bottom. Take that away and your body figures it out, technically, but it does so slowly, reluctantly, and with significantly more gas than anyone involved would prefer. Number 8. Getting a wound to clot. Bleeding, for all of its drama, is actually a remarkably organized process on Earth. When you cut yourself, platelets rush to the site, a clotting cascade begins, and gravity assists by keeping blood pressure directed toward the wound from above and letting excess blood drip away downward. The whole system is chaotic but directional. Blood goes where blood goes. The floor is where most of it ends up. The bandage catches the rest. In zero gravity, blood doesn't drip. Blood forms spheres. If you have an open wound in microgravity, the blood that exits beads up into floating droplets that drift away from the wound surface rather than falling off and out of the picture. This means blood can reattach to the wound, float back against the skin, and create a slick coating over the cut that actually interferes with clotting. The clotting process is also affected by fluid shifts in the body. In zero gravity, bodily fluids migrate toward the upper body and head, changing blood pressure dynamics in ways that make the entire cardiovascular system work differently. Astronauts are trained in emergency medical procedures for exactly this reason. Minor injuries that would be a nuisance on Earth become more complicated in space not because the body's healing mechanisms are broken, but because those mechanisms were designed in collaboration with a gravitational force that isn't present anymore. The body tries to do the right thing and the physics just doesn't cooperate. It's one of those quietly alarming facts about space travel that doesn't make the recruitment posters. Join NASA. Even your paper cuts are more complicated up here. Your blood is not malfunctioning in space. It's just doing what physics tells it to do, which is float, which is not what you want from blood when you're bleeding. Gravity, turns out, was moonlighting as your first responder the whole time. Number 7. Sneezing. A sneeze on Earth is already a minor act of violence. Your body builds pressure, your eyes slam shut involuntarily, and then you expel air at somewhere between 100 and 150 miles per hour in a spray that travels several feet and contains enough particulate matter to make anyone within range deeply reconsider their proximity to you. It's aggressive, it's uncontrollable, and the best-case scenario involves a tissue appearing in time. Gravity handles the rest. The droplets fall, they land on surfaces, someone wipes them up, everyone pretends it didn't happen. In space, nothing falls. Every single particle launched by a sneeze just keeps going. The droplets don't arc downward and land on the floor. They travel outward in every direction and then float. In a sealed space station with recycled air and limited surface area, a sneeze is essentially an aerosolized event that distributes itself evenly throughout the environment. Your colleagues are now breathing your sneeze. The ventilation system is now filtering your sneeze. The ISS is, for a brief moment, partially made of your sneeze. This is one of the reasons why astronauts are quarantined before launch. Not just for their safety, but because introducing a common cold virus into a sealed metal habitat where 6 people share recycled air, and there's no way to open a window is a logistical nightmare. A cold in space is not dangerous in the dramatic sense, but the symptoms are worse because congestion in microgravity doesn't drain. The mucus has nowhere to go because gravity isn't pulling it downward and out. Stuffy noses in space stay stuffy. For weeks, with nowhere to drain. You take for granted every single day that when your body ejects something, it goes away from you. Down and away. In space, nothing goes away. Everything just becomes part of the shared atmosphere. Your sneeze is now everyone's sneeze. This is either beautiful or horrifying depending on how much you like your crewmates. Number 6. Sitting down. Sitting is so fundamental to human existence that we built an entire civilization around it. Chairs, thrones, couches, bar stools. The entire furniture industry is gravity working in collaboration with human laziness to produce an economic sector worth hundreds of billions of dollars. You get tired, you bend your knees, gravity pulls you onto a surface, and the surface holds you there. Effortless, passive, completely dependent on a force you've never once had to thank. In space, you cannot sit down. You can position yourself at a seated angle, but nothing is holding you there. The moment you stop actively maintaining your position, you drift. Astronauts working at consoles on the ISS often use footholds, small loops or rails on the floor that they hook their feet under, just to stay in one place while they work. Without those footholds, pushing a button too hard sends you gently floating backward. Leaning forward to look at a screen becomes a physics negotiation. The human body's resting posture in microgravity, with no muscular effort at all, is a slightly curled position. Knees slightly bent, arms floating forward, back gently curved. It's called the neutral body posture, and it looks like someone who fell asleep in the middle of a slow-motion fall down a very long staircase. It's not uncomfortable exactly, but it is a constant reminder that your body has no default at rest on a surface state anymore. There is no surface. There is only the position your muscles and tendons relax into when nothing is pulling on them. Every chair ever made is a monument to gravity. Every sofa, every park bench, every uncomfortable office chair that's been bothering your lower back for 3 years. All of it exists because a planet is pulling you toward its center and humans decided to meet it halfway with some cushioning. Take that away and furniture becomes abstract sculpture. Impressive. Completely useless. Number 5. Feeling your own body weight. This one is less obvious than the others, but somehow more unsettling once you sit with it. You know you have a body. You know it right now because you can feel it, the pressure of your feet on the floor, the weight of your arms resting on whatever surface they're resting on, the faint compression in your spine from your upper body pressing down on your lower body. You feel yourself constantly, passively, without trying. Gravity is running a continuous background check on your physical form and reporting the results to your brain in real time. In space, that feedback disappears. Astronauts describe a profound and deeply strange sensation in the early days of microgravity where they genuinely struggle to locate themselves in space without looking. Proprioception, your body's internal GPS that tells you where your limbs are without seeing them, works fine, but the constant gravitational pressure cues your brain uses to orient itself are gone. The result is a persistent, low-grade confusion that some describe as feeling untethered, not just physically but perceptually. This is a real neurological phenomenon. The vestibular system, housed in your inner ear, uses gravity as its primary reference point for understanding which way is up. Remove gravity and the vestibular system starts filing inaccurate reports. The brain receives conflicting information from the eyes and the inner ear and the proprioceptive system, and the result, in most astronauts for the first several days, is space motion sickness. Nausea, disorientation, and a general sense that your body is not entirely trustworthy as a source of spatial information. Your sense of self, physically, is partially constructed from gravitational feedback you've been receiving since birth. It's so constant that it registered as silence. You never noticed it because it never stopped. Space is the moment that background hum cuts out and you realize it was doing a lot more than you ever gave it credit for. Gravity wasn't just holding you down. It was telling you that you were there at all. Number 4. Drinking from a cup. You have done this 10,000 times. Probably more. You pick up a cup, you tilt it toward your face, liquid moves toward your mouth, you swallow, you put the cup down. The physics are invisible because they're perfect. Gravity moves the fluid. Your swallowing reflex handles the intake. The process completes in under 3 seconds and requires zero conscious thought. In space, tilting a cup does nothing because gravity is not participating. The liquid stays wherever it is, in a blob clinging to the base of the cup or floating free, and tilting the container just changes the angle of an irrelevant object. Astronauts drink from sealed pouches with straws and bite valves, which they have to actively squeeze to release fluid. Every sip is manual. Every drink requires conscious mechanical effort to move the liquid from the container into your mouth, because gravity, the silent engine behind every beverage ever consumed in human history, is off the clock. The swallowing itself still works. Peristalsis moves fluid down your throat regardless of gravity, which is why you can drink upside down on Earth if you're committed enough to the experiment. But the cup, the glass, the mug, the chalice, the goblet, the tumbler, every vessel ever designed to hold a liquid and deliver it to a human face, all of them are based on the fundamental assumption that liquid will obey a downward direction. Without that assumption, they're just containers with open tops that serve no purpose. Think about every drink you've ever enjoyed. Coffee in the morning, water after a workout, a cold glass of something fizzy on a hot day. Every single one of those experiences is a collaboration between you and a planet. The planet pulls the drink toward you. You meet it halfway with your face. It's a partnership so seamless you forgot there were 2 parties involved. In space, the planet ghosts you, and suddenly drinking is a plumbing problem you have to solve manually every single time. Number 3. Your spine just grows ***. Your spine on Earth is under constant compression. Every vertebra is stacked on the one below it. Gravity is pressing down on the whole column from the top, and the soft discs between each vertebra are being gently but continuously squished. This is normal. This is correct. This is how a spine is supposed to work. You are, at this very moment, slightly shorter than you would be if you lay down and let your spine decompress, which is why you're technically taller in the morning than in the evening. Your body is doing this every day and never once thought to mention it. In space, the compression stops. Without gravity loading the spinal column, those intervertebral discs, the soft, spongy cushions between your vertebrae, begin to expand. They absorb fluid and plump up the way they never quite get to on Earth because a planet keeps pushing them flat. The result is that astronauts on long-duration missions can grow up to 2 inches taller in space. 2 inches. In weeks. Just because nobody is pressing down on them anymore. This sounds delightful until you hear the rest. The spinal expansion in microgravity is frequently accompanied by significant back pain, because the muscles and ligaments surrounding the spine were not designed for a lengthened configuration. The geometry changes, the tension in the supporting tissue changes, and the whole structure that has been operating in one set of conditions for your entire life is now operating in different ones with no transition period or warning. Astronaut back pain is well documented and reportedly quite serious in the early weeks of a mission. Then they come home. Gravity resumes. The spine compresses again. The 2 inches disappear over days and weeks as the discs return to their normal squished configuration, which means the process of returning to Earth involves your spine slowly shrinking back to its original dimensions while gravity leans on it like a disappointed parent saying, "I told you so." Your skeleton is not fixed. It is a negotiation between your biology and the gravitational environment you're sitting in. And right now, your planet is winning, which is, under the circumstances, the correct outcome. Number 2. Fire behaves like a living thing. Earlier in this video, the candle got its moment. A brief, dim, spherical, anticlimactic moment. But the strangeness of fire in zero gravity goes much deeper than a sad candle experiment, and it gets genuinely weird the further you go into it. Weird enough that NASA has an entire research program dedicated to it called the Flame Extinguishment Experiment, which is exactly the kind of project name that sounds like it was invented to be mentioned in a YouTube video. On Earth, fire is dramatic because of convection. Hot gases rise, pulling in fresh oxygen from below, which feeds the flame, which produces more hot gases, which rise, in a continuous loop that makes fire hungry, directional, and constantly reaching upward. The teardrop shape of a flame is the shape of convection itself made visible. Fire on Earth is constantly climbing because climbing is how it breathes. In microgravity, that loop breaks. Without convection, a flame can only access the oxygen immediately surrounding it, and it consumes that oxygen until the flame shrinks down to a cool, dim, blue sphere hovering in space, burning at a much lower temperature through a process called cool flame combustion, which produces different chemical byproducts than regular fire and barely emits any visible light at all. Cool flames are so faint they can be nearly invisible to the naked eye while still burning. There is an invisible fire. It is still chemically on fire. You cannot see it. This is relevant to spacecraft safety in a way that keeps certain engineers awake at night. The reason this matters beyond being fascinating is that fire suppression systems designed for Earth-based fires may not behave as expected against a microgravity flame that is smaller, cooler, less visible, and burning differently than anything the system was calibrated for. Fighting a fire in space is not just a physical challenge, it's a physics challenge. The fire itself is a different object. It follows different rules. It doesn't roar and climb and spread the way fire is supposed to. It just sits there quietly in a ball, being chemically combustion active while looking completely harmless from the outside. Basically, space takes fire, humanity's oldest and most dramatic tool, and turns it into something eerie, subtle, and deeply untrustworthy, which feels thematically appropriate for everything else on this list. Number 1, your own sense of direction. Everything else on this list is physics. Inconvenient, humbling, occasionally disgusting physics, but physics nonetheless. This one is different. This one is about you. Specifically, the part of you that has been so confidently oriented for your entire life that you never once stopped to question it. You know which way is up. You've always known. It's the most basic, foundational, inarguable fact of your physical existence. Down is the floor. Up is the ceiling. This is not a belief. This is not an opinion. This is a certainty so deep it lives below thought entirely. In space, it evaporates within hours. The human brain constructs up using 3 sources of information. The vestibular system in your inner ear, which detects gravitational pull. Visual cues from your environment, like floors being flat and ceilings being above you. And proprioceptive feedback, the pressure of surfaces against your body. Remove gravity and 2 of those 3 systems stop reporting useful information. Your inner ear, which has been reliably pointing toward Earth's center your entire life, goes quiet. Your proprioceptive feedback disappears because no surface is pressing against you. All you have left is your eyes. Astronauts describe a fascinating and deeply disorienting process of mental recalibration that happens in the first days aboard a space station. Up becomes whichever direction your brain decides is up based on visual context. If you float into a module and the other occupants are oriented with their heads toward a particular wall, your brain starts treating that wall as the ceiling. Rotate yourself 180 degrees and within minutes the orientation flips. Your brain quietly updates its model of the room and the previous floor is now the floor again. The sense of up and down becomes a social construct maintained by furniture placement and mutual agreement rather than physical law. Some astronauts report that this is actually liberating after the initial disorientation. The room becomes fully three-dimensional in a way that rooms on Earth never are. Every surface is usable, every wall is a floor if you want it to be, and the arbitrary human decision to live on one specific plane of a cubic space starts to look, from orbit, like a habit rather than a necessity. You've been living on the bottom of every room you've ever entered not because that's the only option, but because a planet made you. Take the planet away, and the ceiling is just a floor you haven't tried yet. That is, in the end, the real lesson of everything on this list. Gravity is so constant, so total, so seamlessly woven into every physical process your body runs and every object your civilization has ever built, that it stopped being a force and became an assumption. Water pours because it should pour. Fire rises because it should rise. You are upright because you should be upright. None of that is true without a very specific and enormous object sitting underneath you, spending 4 billion years pulling everything toward its center without asking for a single acknowledgement. Every cup of water, every candle, every sneeze that hit the floor instead of floating back into your own face. All of it quietly, continuously, invisibly, gravity's doing. And you never once said thank you. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.